In this video, I wanted to talk about some of the barriers that I've come across when it comes to trying to live sustainably. Now, when it comes to learning more and more about the effects that humans are having on the environment, and especially when it comes to climate change, there are a lot of people who are looking at this thing, I think we can do better. But what I think a lot of people do forget is that our environment, and when I mean our environment, our infrastructure, isn't set up to live really sustainably. So let's take, for example, cars. One of the eco tips is ditch your car and walk or get yourself a bike. For a lot of people, that's not possible. It depends obviously where you work as well. For example, I live in a village just on the outskirts of Leicester, and there's no bus service here in this village. There's no way for people to get out of the village unless they walk, bike, or have a car or vehicle of some sort. Okay, so that isn't always a possibility for quite a lot of people. There are so many different elements and barriers when it comes to sustainable living. There's going to be cost, there's going to be availability, there's going to be trust, peer pressure, and sustainable living looks different for everybody. There isn't a one size fits all, and there's no such thing as being a perfect environmentalist. I always refer to myself as an imperfect environmentalist because there's no such thing as perfect. If you're trying to aim for perfect, you're going to just set yourself up for failure. And it kind of reminds me of when I first started my blog back in 2020. I wanted to do better than I was before. And I tried to make so many changes in one go. And what happened was that I failed miserably. I did everything really, really badly. I got so overwhelmed. I started feeling really bad. And it really, really didn't help. So it's about habits. The first place I think to start is it's about habits. We have habits that have developed over the course of our lives, and sometimes it's very, very difficult to break those habits. I think the general rule of thumb is that I think a habit, it takes about 30 days to break a habit. 30 days is a long time, especially if you're actively trying to break a habit. But you know what? If it doesn't work one day, if you slip one day, it's okay. Try again tomorrow. That's not a problem. So the first one I'm going to look at is cost. Now, this is probably one of the biggest barriers that I have seen people struggle with. When it comes to sustainable living, it looks different for everybody because your budget, the money that you have, will dictate what you can and cannot do. And this looks different for every household. It isn't a one size fits all. And so what it is that when it comes to looking at eco-friendly products, I've noticed a massive difference in price. So let's say, for example, you've got a toothbrush, a plastic toothbrush that is £1, and then you have a bamboo toothbrush, which is, I don't know, £2.50, maybe £3. And if you have a very tight budget, what are you going to pick? It's going to be the plastic one, isn't it? So for a lot of people, money is the big issue, but that's okay. That's fine. It doesn't have to be I have to use a bamboo toothbrush, or one of my favorite swaps was a safety razor. So I ditched my plastic razor, which I used a handful of times, and now I have a safety razor where I just changed the blade. I absolutely love that, and it's so well made that it's going to last me a really, really long time, and all I need to do is replace the blade, and the blades are, I think it's like £2.50 for a pack of 10. So it's really, really cost effective. It works for me. It works really well for me. But there could be other areas that you could look at. So for example, one of the things that I talk about a lot on my blog is secondhand shopping. So when you buying from charity shops, if it's clothes or shoes or anything like that, the amount of money that you could potentially save in secondhand. I love buying secondhand clothes. Um, I work from home, so I practically live in jeans. So I always buy my jeans from charity shops. It takes me a while to find what I'm looking for, so I'm always on the lookout. It's size 14 boot cut. That's what that's what I wear. Um, and I don't think I've actually paid any more than a fiver on a pair of jeans in a charity shop. And I absolutely love, it works well for me, and it's a lot cheaper than if I'd actually bought something brand new. So, you could ask friends and family if there's stuff that they don't need anymore. Maybe you could do a clothes swap and stuff like that. Other areas of saving money could be looking at something long term. So, for example, I mentioned the safety razor. Now, because I have a safety razor, I bought that, and I think it was like 20 something pounds, and that was a one off cost. The only ongoing cost I have is the blades, which I think it's like £2.50. I'm gonna have to look it up, but it's like £2.50 or something like that for a pack of 10 blades. And that's it. So the long run is saving me money. And obviously it's better for the environment, because razors, the traditional razors, they have loads of different mixed materials, and it's very, very difficult to recycle. I don't think it's actually recyclable at all, and just ends up sitting in landfill. So there's no point in that. One of the other swaps that I made was menstrual. I use menstrual period pants. So I've been using tampons for years, and I genuinely didn't realise that there was still plastic. There's some plastic in these tampons. I had no idea. I've been using tampons for years. So probably about 3 years ago, I started getting period pants, and now I just exclusively use period pants. Just put it in the washing machine, and you can use it again and again and again. And in the long run, that actually saves money as well. Obviously, it's better for the environment because you're not flushing a tampon down the toilet, or you're not, rolling up and putting menstrual pads in the bin, which obviously can't be recycled, probably end up just sitting in landfill or incinerated somewhere. So look at that. I've got a few resources on my website, which I'll put some links below, of ideas that could probably help you when it comes to the cost of sustainable living. It doesn't even have to be, it could be, making sure you take your shopping bags when you're out and about, and that doesn't actually cost anything. It could be like little changes like that. It could be composting. If you have the space, and you don't think you need a hell of a lot of space for composting anyway, but if you have the space, it could be composting. That's a really good, that's something that you can do as well. So there's loads of little different things that you can do, but I'll put a link below, so some resources if you're not sure where to start, and if you're worried about the cost. I've One of my downloads I've actually costed it, is if you bought it, from a shop, it would cost this much over a period of time. If you make, for example, I've got some DIY recipes. If you make it yourself, it will cost you this over a period of time, and you can actually see the saving yourself. So that's really helpful. So that's the first one, cost. The next one I'm going to talk about is habits. So we pick up habits during our lives, and if you've ever tried to break a habit, it's not easy. If you're smoking, drinking, whatever, it's really difficult. But when it comes to habits, I've personally learned it's about doing things one at a time. Don't do it all in one go. You're going to find it so overwhelming. You'll do everything badly, and then you just feel really rubbish about yourself. So one of the things that I could suggest is that when you go to a supermarket, make a conscious decision to buy loose fruit and veg. If obviously the options available. You could try, maybe if you need, I don't know, a new pair of jeans, go to a charity shop instead. You could do that. One of the ones that I've made, one of the changes that I've made is I ditched um, tea in tea bags. So I drink loose leaf tea now. And because the little pot of tea that's next to the kettle, it's loose leaf, I don't have to go and look for tea bags. That's what I'm using. So, that's a really, really great. It's about doing, and I think somebody said to me it takes about a month to break a habit. And like I said, a month is actually quite a long time. If you don't eat a lot of fruit, you want to eat more fruit in the day. But if you put the fruit, I think I heard this example somewhere. If you put the fruit in the fridge, you're going to forget it's there because it's something that you're not used to doing. So put the fruit somewhere where you'll see it. So, for example, put a piece of fruit next to your computer. It's right in front of you, and that will remind you. Oh, okay, I need to have some fruit today. And eventually, if you do that every day, it will become a habit. And then there'll be one time you'll think, actually, I haven't had my fruit today. And you'll remember that you haven't had your fruit today, and you'll go and get your fruit. And it's about just making these small little changes. Please don't do everything in one go, because that just won't work. Another barrier that I've come across is trust. Now, there are some people out there who don't actually trust certain brands. We have recently seen and become more aware of the rise of greenwashing. Now, I've got a blog on my website that talks about greenwashing, and I'm also going to do a video on it, and I'm going to talk about specific examples that I've come across. So, for those who don't know, greenwashing is when a company are selling a product and they're saying it's good for the environment and it's made with the environment in mind, and it isn't. And you'll probably notice, or you probably would have already noticed, that there are a lot more products on the market that have a picture of Earth or a lot of green imagery and using words like eco-friendly or sustainable or environmentally friendly and things like that. When it comes to, one of the things that I noticed a while ago is tea bags. So a lot of companies who sell tea, I love my tea. I can't not have my tea. My day doesn't function without tea. I'm sure a lot of people are like that with coffee. But a lot of companies would have said that their tea bags are completely biodegradable, completely compostable. So you could just put them in your compost and they're good for the environment. A while back, I remember watching this program on, I think it was the BBC, and they got these tea bags from all these different brands, and in the lab they decomposed them to see if they would decompose straight away, completely. And there were quite a few of them that still had like a plastic skeleton of the bag. And it's like, how was that supposed to decompose? And for me, the trust was complete. Trust was completely gone. So I only drink loose leaf tea. The other thing is that when it comes to doing an experiment in a lab, when it comes to tea bags, decomposing it, a lab is a controlled environment. The environment is not. The natural world is not a controlled environment. There's loads of different elements at play. So for me, trust, and I'm pretty sure this would probably be the case for a lot of people. Trust is a really, really big thing when it comes to sustainable living. It's very difficult for some people to trust when a company says that they're doing something that's good for the environment, um, and they're not. Is, I think, a massive issue, because I think a lot of people maybe think, if you're telling me you're doing something good and you're not, well, what's the point of me doing it? So I know I do completely get that trust is a massive issue. And I think the only piece of advice I can really give when it comes to trust is speak speak to friends and family. You know, if you follow anyone on social media who cares about the environment, who's an environmentalist, maybe just have a conversation with them. Just say, look, I do this. Um, can you recommend an eco-friendly alternative? Um, there's probably a possibility that they can. Maybe they can't, but if that person doesn't have the answer, there's loads of people that you can ask. Um, so there are some ways to get around the trust, but I do realise that is it is a big thing. So another barrier that I've come across is availability. Now, this is quite a difficult one to overcome because not all areas are created equal. When you have a particular product in one shop, you may not be able to find it in another. And you can only, if you need to buy something, you can only get what's available to you. So, this is where I think shops need to do better and offer a more diverse range of products and diverse range of prices as well. Um, I don't know whether it's some companies look at people who want to be sustainable and think, okay, we're going to charge double, and that's really not helpful, because in the shop, if there's a product for £2 and then the eco-friendly version is £4 and you're on a budget, what are people going to choose? So because plastic is low cost, therefore it's a lot cheaper, and there's going to be a lot more of those products available. Now, bearing in mind, plastic isn't the enemy, it's the single use plastic that's the problem, and it's trying to find ways to eliminate that. Now, a lot of us have access to buying things online, and sometimes that can work out cheaper, and that's good. Obviously, get them from reputable companies. Try not to buy from, if you can, where you can, try not to buy from companies who are just sell rubbish. And I'm pretty sure you probably know which companies I'm on about, but literally they make hundreds and thousands of products per day just to sell, and they are really, really low quality. So if you don't have the availability in your local area, you know, online shopping is probably going to be your best option. But if you can, where you can, if you can, please don't purchase from companies that just all they want to do is sell you stuff and sell you cheap stuff. If it's cheap for a reason. Um, so yeah, just to be aware. And also when it comes to availability, if there's something you can't find, maybe there's a way, obviously depending on what it is that you're looking for, maybe there's a way that you can possibly make it yourself, um, which could potentially, obviously depending on what it is, might end up being a lot cheaper and maybe eco-friendly as well. And who doesn't want to save a bit of money? So there's an option there. um I think one of the other issues or other barriers that I've come across is being different. It's okay to be different, and I think this is kind of one of the hang-ups from school, because When you're at school, there's peer pressure to try and fit in and do what other people do. But it seems like this kind of follows you into adulthood as well. So, for example, if you're with a group of friends and you all go out for a drink, and when you're placing your order with the waiting staff, it's okay to say, "Can I have my drink without a straw?" It's okay if you're the only person who says that. That's not a problem. You know, I personally, I know there are some people who need to use straws, and that's fair enough. I personally don't. So where I can, and again, it's a habit, um, where I remember to say, can I not have a straw for my drink? That's not a problem. Um, there are some who recycle and some who really can't be bothered. Sometimes you have to bite your tongue. You can say something. I guess it probably depends on who it is, but sometimes you do have to bite your tongue. Um, One of the other things that I do that's different is that I wear odd socks. Um, so there's a couple of reasons for this, and firstly is because I'm lazy. I don't want to sit there pairing up socks. To be honest, I just can't be bothered. Um, and secondly is that I've always noticed that when obviously we get socks in pairs, understandably, but when one sock has got a hole in it, the other one gets thrown away if it's something that can't be repaired or somebody maybe doesn't know how to repair it. That's fair enough. I personally wasn't taught that at school or how to repair clothes at school. So if you have one sock and it doesn't, you've got your toe sticking out or something like that, the other one goes in the bin, which I think is a bit of a waste because the other one still functions fine. It still has its function, just because it's twin doesn't do what you want it to do anymore. So I guess that's probably from environmentally conscious point of view that I don't see the point in throwing something away that still has a function. I've got for example, I wear a pair of trainers. I bought the pair of trainers a couple of years ago, and there's bits hanging off all the insides. They're all scuffed and everything like that. And it probably needs replacing. But you know what? It still has a function. It's not. They're really bad pair of trainers, but they keep my feet dry. Okay, they're really scuffed. They're not pretty at all. But you know what? They still have their function, and so I won't replace them until water starts leaking into my trainers. And even then, I'll probably try and see if there's a way that I can repair them, get some glue or I don't know, something like that. So I guess that's why I wear odd socks, because I just don't see the point in throwing something away that still has its function. Um, and I mean, I've learned how to repair certain things. I'm really bad at it. But you know what? If it means that it's just a bit of a dodgy patchwork on a sock, that's fine. I mean, who's going to see the sock anyway? I remember years ago I went to a funeral, and when going to a house, we had to take our shoes off. I had odd socks on. I didn't think anything about it. Now, bearing in mind we're at a funeral, and my aunt said to me, "Why have you got odd socks?" And I just said to her, I thought it would just be easier to say, "I can't be bothered to pair them up." And I'm thinking, we're at a funeral and you're asking me about my socks. Um, it's okay to be different. It's okay to do things that are different. If anything, I embrace being a little bit different. And you know what, there really isn't anything wrong with that. So, where do you start with sustainable living? So, don't do what I did and try and do everything in one go. You just know that you're just going to be so overwhelmed, and you just do everything really, really badly. So please don't do what I did. I would suggest start with one thing and do that well. Something that I always say on my social media and in my blogs is start small, do what you can, and build from there, because it is all about making changes. Okay, making changes that work for you. Some things that work for you may not work for somebody else. Something that works for somebody else may not work for you, and that's okay. But making changes is the first step. The second step is to make more changes once you've developed the habits that you've got. So I've got a few resources on my website, and I'll put the links below. There's like a 30-day eco swap challenge. There's one with DIY recipes and stuff like that, and there's some costing in there as well. Keep having conversations. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. For example, if you go into a shop and they say, a tree will be planted for every sale, it's okay to say, okay, well, can you tell me a bit more about that? It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to question certain things. If there's something you're not sure about, you don't understand, it's okay to ask the question. So when it comes to recycling has the way the notion of recycling has changed a lot in the last maybe decade or so, maybe a little bit longer. The recycling is put on the responsibility, obviously this is just my opinion, the recycling is put on the responsibility of the consumer. And if the consumer doesn't recycle, it's like, bad consumer, you're a bad consumer. But there's very, very little focus on the companies who are creating the single-use products in the first place. So there was a supermarket recently in the UK and said, for potatoes to last longer, they need to be in paper bags. That makes sense. So sell them in paper bags. Why are you selling them in plastic bags? And I remember quite a few people when this supermarket said this, and it makes sense, of course it makes sense, but a lot of people, the first thing they said was, why don't you sell them in paper bags? Or maybe sell them loose so people can have their own bags or whatever. But I think the main one was sell them in paper bags then. At least they can go straight in the recycling. So that's a lot easier to deal with rather than having this plastic bag. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And bearing in mind that there's no such thing as being a perfect environmentalist. There is no such thing. Our infrastructure isn't set up for us to be perfect environmentalists. Doing something is always better than not doing anything at all. And remember, sustainable living looks different for everybody. Just do what works for you. And don't forget, start small, do what you can, and build from there. I hope you found this video helpful. If you've got any comments, please put them below. Or maybe if you've come across barriers to sustainable living, what sort of things have you experienced yourself? How did you overcome them? Or maybe you've got some questions on where to start. Please don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to talk about loads more videos got coming up. So I've got quite a few ideas. So, obviously, if you're interested, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you on the next video.